the topic of my talk is educational apartheid in the city of Chicago. To start out, I just want to kind of share some words. They're the words of B.O. Butler, who grew up in Jim Crow, South Carolina. He said, and I quote, "The white school was on one side of town, and ours, the all-black one, was on the other side. We kind of had to do for ourselves mostly because the schools were not supported completely by the state. We had a little room we set up in the principal's office with a few books in it that we called the library, but the books were the ones that had gotten old and had been shipped out to the black schools." And now I know we all got similar education. We've been taught that unequal education is wrong. And we were also taught that Brown versus Board fixed all that in 1954. I would argue that if you drive around the city of Chicago today, tonight, you'll find that this simply isn't the truth. The truth you'll find in this city is that Jim Crow is in fact alive and well in our education system. Long before their teenage years, children are guaranteed virtually a lack of second-class citizenship in the city, herded into overcrowded schools, underfunded schools, and militarized schools, and then blamed along with their teachers, their families, and themselves, of course, for abysmal graduation rates, low test scores, and rampant closures. Just the demographic numbers alone reek of apartheid. Chicago public schools is 85% black and brown, and only 8% white, while the city itself is 45% white. 84% of CPS students receive free or reduced lunch, which is based on similar criteria that food stamp applications are based on. So the surface level, it tells you from an outsider perspective that CPS is for the poor and for minorities. And that's not even talking about education. Right now, in the CPS system, there are 160 schools without a functioning library. 88% of those schools are south of North Avenue. And I don't know who's all from Chicago, but if you know Chicago, you know what type of people live south of North Avenue. And if you don't, they look like me. On average, fourth graders, black and brown fourth graders in the city, score about 25 to 29 points lower than their white peers on standardized tests in both math and reading. The true dropout rate in CPS has hovered around 55 to 60% since 1995. And that number is flawed insofar as it doesn't take into account the young people that have already been kind of drowned in the criminal justice system. The consortium on Chicago School Research back in 2008, it reported an estimate that out of every 100 CPS high school freshmen that enter the system, only 6 can be expected to earn a bachelor's degree by the age of 25. 6 out of 100. So I don't even count 100 people in here, but about 4 of you all would do what you're supposed to do as students. I know, there's some public school kids probably in here, so I'll do the math, but 6 out of 100 is 6%. CPS has a 6% success rate. If we hold as true, the point of high school is to get students to and through college. I don't know of any organization, system, or anything really on the face of the earth that can operate fundamentally unchanged from year to year with a 6% success rate. And so we hear this, the educated and rational people we are, where we say, well, damn, something has to be wrong with the system. It's obviously not working, right? But I disagree. I feel like we need to kind of step back and think about success in a more sinister type of way. The way I see it, CPS is in fact working. In all of its apartheid glory. It's a system that's built upon a foundation of racism and legal rhetorical trickery. And we have victimized lower classes that we read about in history books. They haven't disappeared. They've just been transferred from an old, explicitly racist oppressor to a kind of a new master who uses neoliberalism and militarization as the weapons of choice. Michelle Alexander, who actually spoke in this very room about a month ago, she talks about this situation in terms of it being a social birdcage. And she talks about the intent behind each bar in the construction of that cage may not be specifically to harm the bird, but nonetheless, when they come together, they serve that very purpose. In Chicago, black and brown children are raised in an environment that can't really be described as anything but captivity. The public school system is segregated by race and operates in perfect harmony with the pillars of capitalist white supremacy right now. The birdcage is manifested physically in the communities that these students live in, and is paired with an obscene amount of police surveillance inside and outside of the school that leaves these students with little to no room for error. The petty crimes and drug possession offenses that they may go to jail and get kicked out of school for are no less common in middle-class white communities than they are in CPS schools. But yet, due to the increased police surveillance, these students suffer. And this begs the question, well, what do we do with all these terrible schools? And the city and the state, their answer to that has been over the past 15, 20 years to just simply wipe them out. Just a few weeks ago, the Board of Ed unanimously decided to close 17 schools. Since 2004, over 100 schools have been either shut down or phased out. And guess how many of those schools were in Lincoln Park or Wrigleyville? 0. And as somebody who specializes in communications, who's got an education in mass communication, it's disgusting to kind of see how media and policymakers refuse to kind of call a spade a spade. And instead, we get BS statistics in imagery. They point to the fact that CPS spends $13,000 per student every year, and continues to increase that number every year. And I heard this, and I was like, damn, that makes a lot of sense now. It all comes together. Invisibility cloaks for those books and libraries in the South and the West Side, they have to be expensive. But that's not the case. They can laugh at that. But that's not the case. How can it be that we're spending more money per student every year, and yet continuing to see worsening problems? And if you think outside the box, and again, public school students, that means to be creative. It becomes kind of obvious that the spending is not on books or libraries, but it's on security and surveillance equipment. It's on compensating the Chicago Police Department for patrolling the schools. They point to the achievements of charter schools and military academies and selective enrollment schools. While those achievements can't be denied or can't, just be swept under the rug, the problematic politics behind that success is something we need to talk about. Charter schools provide opportunities for students that in Inglewood and Lawndale and other communities that wouldn't have them. But we don't talk about the fact that they often cherry pick students that are low risk and haven't demonstrated behavioral issues in the past. Urban Prep Academy is a great institution, but there's a reason that 100% of the students get into college every year, because they're taking a certain type of student. Chicago has about 5 military high schools and about 21 middle school cadet corps programs. All but one of these are in poor minority communities. Just as charter schools replace failed public schools, these also replace the failed public schools. And students here, and I really hesitate to even call them students, they're immersed in a different, really more literal kind of militarization. They're day by day, they go through a structure that mimics the armed forces. They learn military history. They operate socially in an officer-esque type of hierarchy. And the next step, the goal is not always college for them. It's the military. It's the armed forces. So you have black and brown students under this sort of false pretense of academic rigor and discipline are being groomed literally to enter the world's most violent military and travel to foreign countries and take lives and possibly give their own in the name of the same imperialist assault that relegates them and their families to second-class citizenship back home. And then we get to selective enrollment schools, the shining light of the CPS system, where the best and the brightest the city has to offer can come together and show everyone how public schools are supposed to look. I can talk kind of about that. I went to Walter Payton High School, which was built in 2001. It's a selective enrollment school, and the shiny, racially diverse, kind of like liberal wet dream in a way, where we got to go study astronomy in a mini planetarium and a macro library, and kind of revel in that privilege with people like the Secretary General of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon, and the President of the Republic of China, who's in Meanwhile, in the same system, literally miles away, places like Fenger High School, which is overcrowded and kind of has a volatile mix of students that have been displaced because of the policies of just shutting down the school. It gives you this combination when we see someone like Marianne Albert get beat to death in plain sight and broad daylight. We have Robeson High School, where only 2% of juniors are testing at a proficient level in math or reading. And this type of tokenism and amnesia, to me, is really personified by the new kind of CEO of CPS, Jean-Claude Bizarre. He himself is a product of big city public education, and just as he is kind of put on a pedestal, the Paytons and the Whitney Youngs are put on a pedestal as proof that the system is working. Things aren't that bad. Where you have really human lottery tickets like Brizard, myself, some people in the audience I see I know went to CPS schools. We're used as proof. So they say, well, look at John Claude or look at Dallas. If you can't make it out, it's your fault because they made it out. It makes me wonder, like, did the media, did legislatures tell black people the same thing back in 1900? You look at, look, there's black people out there getting PhDs and building small fortunes. If you're illiterate and you share crop, that's your fault. The system isn't the problem, it's your fault. Your friend over there hanging from that tree, that's his fault. They probably did, which is a sad thing. So now that I've brightened everyone's day, let's talk solutions. And to me, I see it, since capital and capitalism are the name of the game, you should start with the money. Every year, CPS operates about $750 to about $800 million in budget shortfalls. Yet, we pour money, Illinois money and federal money, into building more prisons and increasing kind of the assets that law enforcement has. We're literally are building jails while we're closing schools. Kind of putting your money where your mouth is, this cliche, but it's for a reason. The receipts that we have, that society has, they're showing us and telling us that locking up black and brown children is more of a priority than educating them. So to close, I know I've been talking for a while, I just kind of want to urge everyone, especially those of you with some familiarity with Chicago Public Schools, to kind of get angry and stay angry. It's great to be here, but don't allow places like Northwestern and the prestigious jobs that it functions to send us to, don't let it distort your vision. We're not the norm. There is a literal war going on. And as these black and brown lottery tickets, these needles in the haystack of colonized masses, wanting to succeed is fine, but we can't forget that true victory isn't won until the other 94%. Those people currently more familiar with probation than graduation are afforded the same opportunity